Hello guys, and welcome to Just Plain Tech. In today's video, we are going to be going over how to easily set up a multi-boot. Now, what is a multi-boot? Well, a multi-boot is having multiple operating systems on the same computer and being able to choose which one you have at startup. So basically, say Windows XP and Linux. Say you have both of them on your computer, a dual boot of XP and Linux. When you start up your computer, you get to choose whether you want to boot into Linux, whichever distro you have, or XP. So, we're going to go over a simple, easy guide on how to set up a multi-boot. Alright, so number one, you need an operating system disk or a USB drive. Watch one of my later videos on how to format a Linux USB drive on Windows. Anyway, we are going to, we need a USB drive or a CD or DVD with a Linux or Windows whatever system on it. Then we also need another system. So, say in this tutorial, we're going to be doing Windows 7 and Ubuntu. So, now to do this, we're going to go through partitions. So, say if you wanted Windows 7 and Ubuntu, we're going to give both of them half of our hard drive space. So this is your hard drive space, say 500 gigabytes. Well, we're going to cut that in half, give half to Windows, and half to Ubuntu. So instead of them both having 500 gigabytes, since we split it in half, they both have 250 gigabytes out of a 500 gigabyte hard drive. Alright? And let's say if you have a document on Ubuntu. Okay, so you got a document. You cannot view that document from Windows since it's not stored on the Windows partition. If you want to use that document, you'd have to boot into Ubuntu. But maybe say, if you had a document on Windows, it's the same thing. If you wanted to view that document, you'd have to boot in to Windows to view that document. So, you won't be able to access the same files from all systems. Different files that, depending on what system you create a file on, that's what system your file will be stored on. Alright, so now we all get what this is, what a dual boot is. Now we're going to go over how to do it in just a sec. Alright, here we are. So let's assume that your computer came with Windows. Okay, so your computer came with Windows, and now you're going to install Ubuntu on it. So let's say as of right now, Windows takes up all your 500 gigabytes hard drive. So Windows takes up all of it. But now what we're going to do is we're going to cut that in half. So maybe you already have Windows installed and you don't want to get rid of it. Then you don't even need a Windows disk. All you need is an Ubuntu disk, which is really easy to make. Either you can watch one of my videos on that, or you can look at other people's videos on that. But basically, you need an Ubuntu disk. So, once you have your Ubuntu disk, you're going to boot into it. Say, this is our Ubuntu Live CD. Okay, so now with our Ubuntu Live CD, what we're going to do is we're going to boot in and we're going to test it. First, you want to make sure, so you're going to select try Ubuntu when it takes you to the screen, whether you want to try it or install it. You're actually going to try it out and see whether or not it works for your computer. And if it works fine on your computer and it will run it and everything, then you're going to want to install it. There will be a little shortcut on the desktop, or you can just, turn it off, go back on, and install it. Now, you don't want to install Ubuntu and do all this and realize your machine won't work well with Ubuntu. So always test it out before you end up installing Ubuntu. So say you've tested it out, and it works. Trying out Ubuntu, it will not do anything to your hard drive unless you open a partition manager like JPT or the install manager and do something with, and you purposely do something with your hard drive. But just testing it out and using it like an average PC won't do anything to your computer. So say if you test it out and it doesn't work, Windows will still be there and it will still be fine. So let's say Ubuntu works. So now we're going to install it. So now this time you're going to install Ubuntu. Alright, so we're going to install Ubuntu. So now we go to the install screen, obviously, and you enter all what you need to do. If you're not sure, then watch my other video on how to install Linux. I was using Linux Mint in that video, but the process is same for Ubuntu. Now let's say you get to the screen where you can either erase and install, or you can install alongside. So if you want to keep Windows but also have Ubuntu on there, then you're going to click install alongside, and then it will bring you to a little easy GUI partition manager that looks something like this, and it will have the Windows, and Ubuntu with a little line in the middle. Now this line, you can use your mouse to kind of resize the partition, and you can say move it this way to make more space for Ubuntu, move it this way to make more space for Windows. So yeah, that is how a dual boot works. Now if you're going more complicated and you want to do a triple boot or a quadruple boot, or have 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 or more than that, what you're going to want to do, so like say maybe you could do something like this for your first two. For your first two operating systems, you can just hit the install alongside. But let's say you're doing more than that. Okay, so now let's say that now you have Windows and Ubuntu. Alright, so you have Windows and Ubuntu on the same machine. Now, say you're going to install Linux Mint. Okay, so then we're going to install Linux Mint, but we can't just hit the alongside anymore because that could create a problem. So here what we're going to do is there is a software that comes in the Linux Mint Live USB. So again, you're going to want to test Linux Mint with the Live USB and make sure it runs. And chances are, if Ubuntu worked, Linux Mint will work too. So what we're going to do is when you're in the live CD or the live environment of Linux Mint, you're going to open a software called JPT, GNOME Partition Manager. I think you can probably find it. And let's say when you open JPT, it will probably look something like this. With all your partitions, dev, SDA, 1 and 2, and let's say 250 GB and 250 GB, and a ton of other stuff down here. Alright, so now what you're going to want to do in JPT, there will be a little button somewhere on top, which I'll show you a screenshot of, and you're going to hit resize. So, and you're going to resize one of the partitions. So, here. Okay, so let's say that you have Windows on SDA 1 and you have Ubuntu on SDA 2. So now you're going to hit the little resize button. It'll be somewhere up here, and you're going to resize. It will open up a little window like this with the whole partition. And now what you're going to do is you're going to want to resize it. So it will probably be somewhere around here. And you're going to click this. And you're going to drag it back to maybe here or here or here or wherever you want it. So this filled area right there, that filled area, that is used space. And the white area is free space. So you make sure you don't drag it to where it's only used space, because then your operating system won't function because it's out of space. So make sure you leave a little bit of space. But let's say you shrank Windows and made some room for Linux Mint. So all you did was shrink Windows. Now there is some unallocated space. Untaken space right here. This is all free space. Now that is how you want to leave it. Then you're going to click Apply Changes and Exit. And then, just like I said earlier with the erase and install alongside, you're going to want to hit just like later. So basically, when you're adding more operating systems, all you're really doing is creating more free space. So now that you have that free space created, what you're going to do is So now that you have that free space, you're going to go to the Linux Mint installer and you're going to click alongside. And what will happen when you click alongside is it will actually install to the free space. So if you think you're more comfortable with that and you'd rather, even if you're just doing 2 operating systems, if you think you're more comfortable with just making space before installing the second operating system, you can also do that, but it's just you don't have to. It's just a lot more safer to do it when you're adding a 3rd operating system, or a 4th, or a 5th, or a 6th, and so on. So, yeah. So all you really need to do is make space first, and then click install alongside. And it will actually install alongside other operating systems in the free space if you have free space allocated. So, yeah, and you can keep doing that for more and more and more and more and more Linux distros or operating systems. Alright, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope you liked it, and I hope you learned a lot from this video, and we'll see you next time.